Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into one of those commandments we think we know. Honor your father and your mother.
Right. The Fifth Commandment.
Exactly. But this isn't just about, dusting off old texts. We're going to unpack some pretty fascinating insights, especially looking at the book of Deuteronomy. And these insights reveal some deep historical misunderstandings that, well, they're still shaping how we think today.
They really are.
Our source for this exploration, it's a really powerful analysis from the UEA YouTube channel, specifically their video on the Ten Commandments and covenant law, focusing on honoring parents.
A great source.
So get ready, because this might honestly change how you see your own responsibilities and maybe even what it truly means to be blessed.
That's a perfect way to put it, because what's really striking here is how these slight changes or additions in Deuteronomy shift the whole weight of the commandment. Well, these insights, they really challenge our usual ideas about filial piety. That sort of simple traditional view of kids just obeying parents unquestioningly.
Right. That's the common take.
But this pushes us to see a much, much heavier responsibility, often overlooked, actually. And it falls particularly on the parents themselves.
So less about the kid's duty and more about the parents.
In a significant way, yes. And these aren't just like old historical footnotes. These misunderstandings are active. They shape how we understand it right now, maybe more than we even realize.
Okay, let's unpack this then, right from the start. If you compare Deuteronomy 5.16 to the version in Exodus, there are these two phrases that jump out. As the Lord your God has commanded you, and so that you may prosper.
Key additions.
They seem small, but what do they actually add? Let's start with the first one. As the Lord your God has commanded you. What's the significance there?
Okay, so if we think about this in the bigger picture of covenant law, God's agreement, his principles for his people, that phrase, as the Lord your God has commanded you, it means something specific.
Which is?
It means that what parents teach isn't just their own personal wisdom or, what they've learned from life. It has to be delivered with divine authority as God's own word.
Wow. So it's not just listen to your parents because they're older.
Not at all. It explicitly states that the main and really weighty responsibility for teaching God's word directly, it falls right on the parents in the home.
So you can't just outsource it.
Exactly. It's not something you can just shift over to religious leaders or schools or whatever. It's about parents embodying and teaching God's word firsthand. It's their primary job, according to this.
That's a huge emphasis, isn't it? And it really contrasts with how things often work today, where faith education is often seen as something external.
A very sharp contrast. It makes this insight incredibly relevant for us now.
Yeah, it feels very immediate.
It absolutely does. The parent's role is seen as foundational, irreplaceable.
All right, let's pivot to that second key addition in Deuteronomy 5.16, so that you may prosper, or Ania, as it's often put.
Yeah.
How is that usually understood, and what's the different angle here, especially in Deuteronomy's context?
Well, the common interpretation, seeing prosper as individual blessing, like personal success, maybe financial gain. Sometimes it gets tied up with ideas like the prosperity gospel.
Yeah, that's definitely out there.
But that reading, it's actually, based on this analysis, a pretty serious historical mistake. We need to forget individual gain for a moment.
Okay.
Prosper here, or hana, means you become a channel, a conduit for blessing. It's about ensuring the entire community thrives, especially your children, because you're living out justice and shared well-being.
So it's not about me getting blessed.
It's about you being a blessing. The original meaning isn't about being the recipient, the beneficiary. It's about being the source or channel for others.
How does that work?
When parents teach and raise kids according to God's ways, and that means emphasizing justice, sharing, protecting the weak, the whole spirit of the covenant law, then the next generation truly experiences a blessed life.
So the prospering is for the community, through the parents' actions.
Yes, that's the genuine meaning. Achieving blessing for the whole community, going way beyond just individual gain. It's a fundamental shift in thinking.
That completely reframes blessing. Okay, so if that's the case, what does honoring parents actually mean then? What's the action?
Honoring parents, viewed this way, means respecting, accepting, and crucially, following their teachings, but with a condition.
Which is?
When those teachings actually align with God's word. When parents are faithfully transmitting that divine authority we talked about.
Ah, okay. So it's not blind obedience.
No. It's recognizing and responding to God's wisdom through the parents. And doing that directly contributes to the well-being of the children, yes, but also the whole community. It becomes this core act of faith.
Which makes it different from just, say, secular ideas of being a good kid or ethical filial piety?
Very different. It's rooted in the covenant relationship with God and its implications for the community.
This really does reshape things. Okay, then there's the third bit, which is often misunderstood. That your days may be long in the land.
Ah, yes, another big one.
We've always taken that individually, haven't we? Like, honor your parents, and you personally will live a long life.
That's the standard reading. But again, according to this analysis, it's another major historical error. And it comes from the same individualistic lens.
Well, what's the real meaning?
Well, first, the land isn't just any land. It refers specifically to the covenant land, Canaan, promised by God.
Okay, the promised land.
And long life in that land. It doesn't mean one single person living to be, say, 90 or 100.
Then what?
It promises the sustained, just, and peaceful existence of the entire covenant community within that land. It's about the community's endurance.
The community's lifespan, not the individual's.
Exactly. And it's totally dependent on their faithfulness to God's law, the covenant law. It's a promise of collective flourishing, community endurance, if they live according to God's ways.
So, boiling long life in the land down to just my personal lifespan, that really misses the point. It distorts the whole communal covenantal meaning.
Profoundly. It takes this grand promise about the people's collective destiny and shrinks it down to individual benefit.
It's not about me living long. It's about us, the community, thriving for generations in the place God gave us. That's powerful.
It is. It's about the longevity and flourishing of the collective, built on faithfulness.
Oh, wow. Okay, I feel like we've just completely flipped the script on this commandment. I mean, we've always been taught it's mainly about children needing to obey and respect their parents.
This is the common emphasis, yes.
But listening to this, it sounds like the real weight, the heavy lifting of this commandment might actually be somewhere else entirely.
You've nailed it. That's precisely the takeaway. Following Deuteronomy's emphasis here, this commandment goes way beyond just telling kids to be obedient.
It puts the burden.
Where? It places a much, much heavier responsibility squarely on the parents.
Heavier in what way?
Parents have to accurately know God's word. They have to genuinely teach it. And crucially, they have to live it out, demonstrate it in their own lives. Why? So their words actually carry the weight of God's authority for their children. It's not just do as I say.
It's do as I do because I'm trying to live God's word.
Exactly. And the implication is profound. Whether the next generation, the children's generation, actually prospers, and whether the whole covenant community endures in the land. It depends almost entirely on the teaching and the lifestyle of the parental generation.
That is a complete reversal of how we usually think about it.
It really is. It makes parents sound less like advisors and more like architects.
Yeah.
Architects of whether the community thrives or fails based on their faithfulness.
Truly transformative. Okay, so if this is the case, let's get practical. What kind of teaching then becomes important? How might we actually see this lived out? Maybe we could contrast, say, some Jewish educational approaches with that famous example of the Gyeongju Choi family in Korea.
That's a really interesting comparison. While many Jewish traditions obviously have deep values of community, tzedakah, charity, and passing on faith, sometimes certain educational focuses, perhaps unintentionally, can lean towards preparing children for individual success in the world, maybe economic success.
Which might align more with that older idea of receiving blessing individually.
It could, in some interpretations,
Yeah.
It might sometimes map onto that more individualistic concept. Now, contrast that with the Gyeongju Choi family, whose motto was famously, let no one within 100 lanti a unit of distance go hungry.
Right, I know that story. They focused on community well-being.
Exactly. That embodies a life dedicated to caring for neighbors, ensuring shared prosperity. It's a life aimed at making others blessed. That feels much, much closer to the spirit of the covenant law we've been talking about, being a conduit for blessing the whole community.
So at the end of the day, the crucial thing is what is actually being taught, and maybe even more importantly, what kind of life is being modeled by the parents.
Absolutely. It's not just about the words. It's the substance of the instruction and the authenticity of the life lived behind those words. That's what gives it true weight and authority.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. This deep dive into the Fifth Commandment, it's shown us it's so much more than simple filial piety, isn't it?
Far more.
It really emphasizes this, well, incredibly weighty responsibility on parents. And this core principle of living a life that actively blesses the entire community. It feels like we've corrected some really old misunderstandings that are still kind of floating around today.
I think these insights are crucial, especially for anyone living today, particularly if you're a parent. It really shifts the focus.
Yeah.
And maybe this leaves you, the listener, with some challenging questions to ponder. Really introspective ones.
Like what?
Well, based on this understanding, what am I actually teaching my children right now? Is it aligned with God's ways? Do my teachings, and perhaps more importantly, does my life, earn the kind of respect and trust from the next generation that it could be seen as carrying God's authority?
That's a tough one.
And third, does the result, the fruit of my life and my teaching, extend beyond just my own child's individual success? Does it actually contribute to bringing blessing, real flourishing to our whole community?
Those are definitely challenging questions, not easy answers there.
No, they're not meant to be easy.
And maybe, just maybe, engaging with those weighty questions, trying to find your own answers, maybe that's the truest way to actually live out this commandment right now.
I think that's exactly right. It's an ongoing process of living into that responsibility.